it's difficult. And when you want to come out, you want to come out. It's really up to you when it is the best time to come out. We have people that are in their 60s that come out, some people in their 40s. You have to be comfortable. And to have someone out you is not the way to do it. I met a person once, an older man, and his partner wanted him to out himself to his family and stuff. He was previously married, but to tell his daughter and stuff. And he was really upset afterwards. You have to do it on your time and your terms and to feel comfortable. It's a journey and it never really stops.
Welcome to Graying Rainbows, the podcast community for people coming out LGBT plus later in life. I'm your host, Dr. Ginger Campbell. Before I tell you about today's episode, I want to remind you that you can find additional episodes and show notes on my website at grayingrainbows.com. And of course, you can subscribe for free in your favorite podcasting app. If you want to send me feedback, write to me at grayingrainbows@gmail.com. Submit voicemail via speakpipe.com/Doc Artemis. And you can also post to our Facebook fan page. If you belong to the private Facebook group, don't forget that we're moving to MeWe for better privacy. Just send me an email if you want to join. Also, don't forget that you can support Graying Rainbows via Patreon at patreon.com/Graying Rainbows. Today's episode is an interview with William Smith from the website Gay Life After 40, which he's been running since around 2002. He's also got a bunch of Facebook groups, and he's planning a live event for September. I'll be back after the interview to tell you more about the Graying Rainbows community. William Smith, it's great to have you today on Graying Rainbows. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story with me today.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it too.
William, I know you've been out for a while, but would you please share a little of your own coming out story?
I came out late in life, in my late 30s. I moved to Chicago. At that time, I was doing really well professionally, and I felt comfortable because prior to that, I was focusing on studying and trying to make my way in the business world. So when I got to Chicago, I felt really comfortable stepping out. And this is back in the late 90s. And it was fun. I enjoyed it. I was going out on dates, and it was just different time period where it was after the AIDS scare and things. But people it was just a different environment where you can meet people and go on actual dates and go to dinners and movies and things like that. I had found a special person. It was crazy. This sounds so stupid because it's really real. It really did happen. In those days, obviously, the internet wasn't that prevalent yet in the 90s. And so I posted a classified in the Chicago Tribune under personals. And the title was Broaden Your Horizons. And I had gotten a few responses. This particular person answered it and really, really wanted to meet me. And at the same time, I was going to Europe for almost 3 weeks. When I posted, I kind of did this at late night, and I wasn't really planning on the date thing. I didn't think I was going to get any responses. So I met him, and we ended up in a long-term relationship, and it was a wonderful thing. But things like that do happen. I actually have a program called How to Be Social After 40. So I have a whole systematic process in terms of how to meet people in other venues and not just online. There's so many ways of meeting individuals and connecting and possibly getting into a long-term relationship. So that's how, and we bought a house together, and so it was just great.
So how old were you when you figured out you were gay?
I always knew that I had inkling since I was probably 5 years old. I just never voiced that opinion. I was involved in a lot of plays and theater and singing and stuff, so I was kind of familiar. But in those days, most people did not come out at all. It was a totally different experience. And the ones that did come out, but didn't really come out, but just acted more flamboyant, or which is very minimal, would be harassed and stuff. So it was just a different type of thing. But back when I got in my 30s, it was not an issue at all. Everybody was very respectful of our relationship. And matter of fact, we had a home that it was called a historical homes tour, and people would come to our home from the city and see, things, and it was kind of cool. So we weren't intimidated by being ourselves at all.
So when you came out, were your parents still living?
Yes, there was always an understanding that I was different and special in some respects, but it was never a big deal for me. I never really made it a big deal. I just like people in general, so I never had an issue. And sure, my parents had issues with it, but it is what it is. I never really let it bother me. But one thing that did bother me, I wrote an article on my fear is my courage. An article about that when I first started doing the websites. I was really worried about coming out in that respect, because you're going to see friends and possibly family members or people that you used to work with that might find it on when you Google my name and stuff like that. I was a little fearful of that, but I said to myself, you know what? I'm not going to worry about that. I did lose a very close friend of mine that was actually my best friend since middle school. Someone had contacted him, or somehow I found out on Facebook or whatever that I was so involved in social media with this, and it just broke our relationship up. Did it bother me? Yes. But at the same time, I got to be myself, and maybe down the road he'll evolve like a lot of people do. So there's got to be forgiveness for people, for them as well as for yourself, and mainly for yourself. If you let things fester and think about the past too much, it's not going to get you anywhere. It really doesn't.
William, one reason I wanted to have you on Graying Rainbows was so that you could share the resources that you've created to help other gay men. Would you tell us about that?
Sure. I am the founder and publisher of GayLifeAfter40.com, and our motto for our site is keep on aging forward in life. So I created this site initially because I felt there was a great void in social media for gay men after 40, and people in general after 40, but gay men especially. Focusing on youth is great, but we are missing out on the entire LGBT lifespan. So initially, I started looking at envisioning this when I was in my 30s, when my partner, he was purchasing a magazine. In those days, it was magazines, and he had bought a lifetime subscription to a magazine that kind of had a little bit of older people in it. Unfortunately, that magazine stopped existing, and the digital age really came about in 2000, 2001. So I created this about 2007, 2008. What I realized is some self-doubts come into play as you age, and loneliness is part of it. And many men and lesbians as well can count on their one hand how many close friends they have in contact with after 40. Friends die, friends get married, and have kids, and relationships end. So there's a grief that can come into play with that. You get depressed because of the loss, and the loss of possibly your health as well, the loss of some careers that you had when you were younger. Finding a relationship can be difficult to foster, and gay dating can be very challenging after 40 years old. So I created a site that could address some of those issues and bring ideas and answers to help people in one way or another. And I've been blessed to have some close friends that write for us, as well as contribute to us. Stephen Reeder, he's the certified life coach who has wrote countless articles for me and self-esteem, forgiveness, and recently did a 6 bogus grief beliefs in the age of COVID-19, which is really critical because a lot of people right now are shut in their homes and stuff, and we're already isolated. Now they're really, really isolated. So that helps a lot. And a friend of mine as well, board certified psychiatrist Lauren Olson, who wrote Finally Out, which I know you know him. I wanted to take a step further by also, I would get emails and things from readers, but I really want to interact more with people and let them interact with people of their own age. And so I created Facebook groups. Gay Life After 40 has 26,000 members and counting. Gay Life After 40 for Dating has 9,000 members. We've actually had at least 2 marriages out of that, which is something that's great. The Gay Life After 40 for Dating is really a tool, a dating tool. And that's how my mission statement is for that, is to get people talking and not be so fearful of engaging in conversations and meeting people on the phone or live like we're doing today. So it's a tool. It's not necessarily meaning that they're going to find somebody, but it's really good to get bounce off some ideas and to connect. And then Gay Life After 60 is unique because when you're in your 40s, you have different sets of problems, and then in your 60s, you definitely have different sets of problems. And so it's a great group. I enjoy it. I'm not 60 yet, but I really enjoy it because of the fact that they're very real. They're allowed to post a lot of different things. The Gay Life After 40 has a lot more rules and regulations. One of the rules that we have, which kind of gets us in trouble, is with some of the members, is they have to have a shirt on and stuff, because we really want it to be focus driven rather than have a sexual image or whatever. So we're really trying to narrow it down into those kind of, like, more of a serious conversation and fun too. We have a DJ that plays every Friday for free, does DJing, does requests, is awesome. His name's Spencer. So there's a lot of people that give to our site as well as to Facebook, and just give their expertise and their life experiences. And I think that's a great thing. And it's something that you don't see too often in different venues. So it's something unique.
William, you talked about the importance of forgiveness earlier. So I would love for you to share that story you told me from one of your live events.
We had a conference 2 years ago in Chicago, Gay Life After 40 conference, and one particular participant said that he doesn't forgive people. And I told him it's really, really critical for you to move on. And it's very, very critical to a lot of the one life coach that was doing one of the presentations on how important it is to move on. It's just critical in your development as a person. We all make mistakes. We all have prejudgments of people, and I'm always learning myself. We talk about it even in our gay groups. We had it was some backlash about some bisexual men being part of the group, and FTMs, and I made sure that they are accepted, and I voiced that in the groups, and had some members leave because of that. But you have to accept people as they are, and they can make such a huge difference in our groups as well. The more you meet people, the more experiences you have with folks, the better off. Prejudging can happen because of society tells you, your parents, or your religion, or whatever. But as you grow older, you have to have your own sets of values, and you combine some of those values that your parents and society has. But you have to create your own based on your own experiences, and that's how you're going to grow and you're going to age forward.
In your retrospective of looking back on coming out, which it sounds to me was like at least 20 years ago, you don't really remember it as being that hard of a thing. Do you think that was because you were in the right place? I mean, you were in a big city where you could find a community?
Well, yes. When I was younger, I tried the local venues, And I didn't want to associate with some of the folks that were there, and it was just different. And then when I got to Chicago, there were tons of clubs and tons of places to go to, and I had no problem going by myself at all to these clubs and things. I love to dance and I like to meet people. And I learned a lot from people, just talking to people at bars and stuff about their lives. And that's also made me want to create a website as well for that, because I learned a lot from them as well, because I was inexperienced. I didn't know a whole lot of people my age and stuff. So I can understand the fear sometimes of folks coming out, but I really didn't have that much fear from it, because I was older. Now, if I was in my 20s doing things, I might be more fearful. But I really enjoyed the single life at that time period. It was a lot of fun.
So when you're getting emails from the people who visit your website and then your groups, but especially emails, because that's when people tend to be, more candid. Do you get emails from people that are concerned about their privacy? I've moved my Facebook group off of Facebook to MeWe for privacy, because I have so many people that need a better level of privacy.
Yes, I have a fan page that's public, which is great because then people can see that in general. Then I had all my other Facebook groups are private. It wasn't private before, but I decided way before it became the norm to make it private so people could voice their opinions and not be afraid of someone seeing that from work. Or we have people that are married that want to have some questions about a spousal issue, and which is okay to question the group about it, but sometimes they go a little too much information, which can be a huge problem because usually the spouse can find out. But it's very, very important for people's safety and consideration that they can be themselves and feel comfortable. So I definitely thought it was great to be a private group, more or less, and we haven't really had any backlash because of it.
Yeah, the biggest issue that I have is private doesn't mean people can't tell you belong to a group. Your membership is still visible.
The other members can cause havoc.
Well, no, I mean, people can tell what groups you belong to, even if they're private, and they can't see the content. They can't see what you posted, but they can tell that you belong. I mean, I interviewed someone recently who was outed because people realized he had a lot of gay contacts on Facebook. Now, that wasn't really about what groups he belonged to, but the point is the danger there. So that's just something to be aware of, that private does not mean your membership is a secret.
And you'll get a lot of people that want to befriend you on Facebook, and some can be scammers. I have, I believe, like 5 moderators in the big group, and they do a superb job in terms of monitoring situations, as well as they're really clear on who they accept in our group. But we have scammers that try to come in and stuff or befriend somebody, and we get that all the time. I mean, have females that will try to do that just because of our age. So being mindful of that, I tend to, when somebody befriends me on Facebook, I tend to wait a couple weeks, unless I actually know them based on conversations with them or what they're doing on Facebook. I wait it out, and then I just see what they're trying to do, what they're doing, and things like that to make sure it's safe for people. I have an article that I wrote on don't get hooked into scamming that was really popular, and it took me maybe a month to write it. I actually took dialogue from actual scammers from different dating groups, apps, and stuff to really show people what to look for. There's certain foundations of things that they constantly use in their conversations with that person to try to get them out of a group and into their own private conversations via phone and what have you. So I always tell them, try to stay in the dating site itself as well as in a Facebook group. And if you have any questions, refer it to our administrators and moderators, because we can tell right away what's going on.
Is that a very common problem?
On dating apps and dating sites, yes, very much so. Not too common with us. If your group is Gay Life After 40 and you're 20 years old, obviously you don't belong there. So we really steer away from anybody. The closest age we get to 40 would be 35. That's my cutoff. Other than that, it's got to be 35 or older.
Okay. Well, Bill, is there anything else that you would like to share today?
Well, I wanted to talk about the 5 profiles, but before that, I just wanted to talk about caregiving itself. We're having a Gay Life After 40 mastermind forum in Chicago, but we're also going to be digitally recording it for people to purchase with a lot of wisdom from the group that's going to be participating. I don't talk about this enough, and this is about caregiving in general. After 40, we as LGBT population are more likely to provide care for adult friends or relatives more than our straight counterparts. 21%, this is based on a MetLife study, versus 17%. Our hours that we devote to a loved one is 41 hours versus 29. And so I'm always concerned about when people age that they are not receiving help. 2 out of the 3 gay seniors live alone versus 1/3 of the heterosexual population, and nearly 20% of gay seniors have no one to care for them. So I really talk about, especially now with COVID-19, is having a support system in place. It's very, very important to have a support system of some close friends, family members if you have them, but someone that can help be your advocate if you ended up, God forbid, in the hospital or in a nursing home for a short term. It's really, really, really important. There was an EU survey where there was a big fear of gay population living in nursing homes, and there was a lesbian. Her name was Lindsay Peterson. The title of her article was, "I'm afraid of being abused, but I won't hide any longer." She really talked about the fear of when you get older and you end up in a nursing home, that the same kids that treated you shabbily and tortured you mentally will be the same ones seeing you at the end of your life in a nursing home. I got a lot of feedback actually from folks in Liverpool and other parts of England about it, because the article was based out of England. It's so critical that we have a support system in place, and having housing would be great for LGBT people to have when they get older. But it's very, 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 very important to communicate with your peers in different settings like we're doing today. It's just critical so we can move on in our lives and build a foundation of folks. And with your venue, there's a lot of links and stuff that can provide people with help, which I really, really appreciate.
Thank you for bringing that up, because the subject of LGBT elders is something that, I haven't talked about in quite a few months, even though it was, and Lauren Olson was on early on and talked about it, and I had people from SAGE and AARP, but not recently. So I thank you for bringing that important topic back to mind. I just want to take a moment to tell you about the new 2nd edition of my book, Are You Sure? The Unconscious Origins of Certainty, which is based on several episodes of my podcast, Brain Science. I'll tell you more about it in my closing remarks, but I want to remind you now to mark your calendar for June 16th, 2020. That's the day the book goes on sale. If enough people buy it on Amazon on that same day, it might qualify as a bestseller in neuroscience. But I want to emphasize that you don't need to know anything about neuroscience to enjoy the book. So please mark your calendar for June 16th. Now, what was the other thing you wanted to talk about?
I just wanted to talk about the 5 profiles that I see on our site, as well as on Facebook groups. And so people could see themselves a little bit in each category. I see myself in some of these profiles. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I just want to let people know they are not alone. In terms of this, people all have some of these problems and concerns and stuff like that. So the first one is a disillusioned outsider. This is a person that came out early in life in their teens and early 20s and had a fantastic life. Life was great. But as they age, they become and realize that they're starting to become an outsider in the gay world. So they're sold a bill of goods that life is going to always be great and fun and accepting, but the contract is broken and the image of them being at their age is not included in that contract any longer. So people may not feel comfortable at clubs. They tend to be against the walls more or less and a wallflower, and maybe even at the LGBT centers that I've been to. And these are in metropolitan cities, totally focus on the young. And then when you bring up a subject like, hey, I'd like to put this poster out for anybody that's interested in attending a forum, it's like, well, yeah, you can put it out. And the older people, they're in a different place in the city. They're not in the LGBT center. They're in a little store front a few blocks away. And then you go there, which I've been there like 3 times. Lights are off. The dust is on the door. So I think it's really important to encompass and include all sorts of people in all sorts of ages in the LGBT center, but also this, and that's just a side note, but there's one profile, a disillusioned insider, feeling like he doesn't belong anymore. And so when he comes to our website and he comes to our Facebook groups and sees people that are actually very handsome and very well together and are enjoying life, he's like, oh my God, I can't believe this is what I was looking for. So that disillusioned insider starts feeling more comfortable. The second one is a disillusioned outsider. This is a person that comes out later in life. That's a person that's in their 40s or 50s or even 60s. They're new to the gay world. They have tons of questions, and sometimes they will be frowned upon by some of our members. Like, you don't know what this means, you don't know what that means, and we got to remind them that, hey, a lot of folks have just came out, and they don't know all the vocabulary and stuff. So these folks are not accepted in the straight world anymore because they're gay and they came out, and then they are not really accepted in the gay world because they're too old based on the standards of the young image. So people tend to call them daddies, and sugar daddies is another thing, and scammers seek them out. And so this disillusioned outsider really has to be savvy to all that to make sure that they do not get scammed and they can still enjoy life. So we have some of those folks in there in our groups as well. And the third is an aimless drifter. He's never been really in a real relationship, maybe lives in a small town or a rural area, sees himself as undervalued, not confident, no support system at all, can be someone who is possibly in a straight marriage that is considering going gay but is kind of on the edge. He's half in, half out. He doesn't attract a lot of things because he's quiet and he's standing on the fence a lot. And then the fourth, and which is something that I do see on and off quite often, is a hypersexual person. And that person he really can't hold a conversation without talking about sex. Lauren Olson once on his book says some people refer to the internet as the crack cocaine and sees pornographic images constantly and stuff. So sometimes on our group, we have strict rules, and they'll post something totally unacceptable and they forget where they're at. So that kind of person needs some development. And our group, I think, helps that. And there are groups on Facebook that really have those kind of imagery and stuff like that, but ours doesn't. They forget sometimes where they're at. And sex is great and everything, but we want them to really realize, you can have good conversations with folks and develop great relationships. It doesn't have to be a one night stand or something like that. It can be something else. One of the things we're talking about sex in this thing is when you age, you still can have wonderful sex. It's just different. So that's one of the things we're going to be talking about at our mastermind, is about sex. And as you age, it can still be a great thing and you still can be engaged. It's not the end of the world as we speak. And then the fifth one is somebody that's really enjoying gay life, over 40, and has friends, close friends, and is traveling and content and leads a lot of good spirit and information. That's pretty much our site and feedback on the Facebook groups. And we just want people to talk and chat with their peers and read articles that may help them and age forward in life. That's really it.
So what's the website, the starting website for somebody to go to that they can then get to everything else?
Sure. It's gaylifeafter40.com. And that's where that is. And then when they go on the Facebook, it's Gay Life After 40 private group. And then Gay Life After 40 for dating, Gay Life After 60. And all they have to do is join, and we look at the profile and decide if they are able to or not.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to share these resources and ideas. For me, it's really important that this podcast be accessible to everyone in our community, whether they consider themselves gay, bi, trans, lesbian, queer, anything in between. Although I do have to say, I think the idea of being non-binary is more of a young people thing.
Right. Yeah, there's so many things that the young people, I agree.
They've invented a lot of categories that I don't actually understand the need for, but.
Right. Yeah. There's a new word, side. I didn't know what that meant until I asked somebody. And then, so I asked older person, he had no idea, and he's very experienced, and it's the same stuff. It's just recategorized.
I don't know what it is about the human mind. My main podcast is about brain, so I naturally go to this question, what it is about us that makes us so prone to labeling both ourselves and each other. I mean, even the people who say they don't want to be labeled, they're just creating new labels that they're trying to say aren't labels.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. It's very important to welcome everybody and to try to accept people as they are and how they are as a person. I totally get it. More now than ever, actually. More now than ever. I think it's based on my experiences with a lot of different people. It's really different.
Well, you've probably helped a lot of people over the years. So what would you say is your go-to advice for somebody looking at trying to come out later in life?
Well, there's a lot of books on it. Hey, I'll tell you this little story. When I came out, when I went to Chicago and stuff, I was dating girls and guys for a while. And then I got involved in a great relationship. But the first year was stressful, but beautiful at the same time. I was crying a lot, and I don't cry. I'm not a crier. I think it's because I was trying to let go, but yet try to be more committed to my parents' values. And my partner at the time was very, very considerate. I mean, I know I told him, I'm so sorry this happened. But when we first started going together, I would say, I'll give this relationship 6 months, because I just wanted the 6 months of how it felt to be in a relationship, in a gay relationship. And then we ended up being more than 12 years. So it just, it's difficult. And when you want to come out, you want to come out. It's really up to you when it is the best time to come out. We have people that are in their 60s that come out, some people in their 40s. You have to be comfortable. And to have someone out you is not the way to do it. I met a person once, an older man, and his partner wanted him to out himself to his family and stuff. He was previously married, but to tell his daughter and stuff. And he was really upset afterwards. You have to do it on your time and your terms and to feel comfortable. It's a journey. And it never really stops. I mean, when you get in your 50s and stuff, you might have a couple females that want to date you, and then you're like, oh, here I go again. Got to explain my whole persona and stuff. And that can happen, with lesbians as well and stuff. And it can be difficult, but you got to get used to it. But once you do it, you feel more at ease. You feel the pressure off your back. And the biggest thing is the worst fears is really doesn't really happen, doesn't really occur. The fear of coming out, you think this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and it really doesn't. And most people will like, well, I already knew. So it's like, it's not that big of a deal. You have to do it on your own terms.
That's a good bit of advice. Yeah, one of the things I'm learning from getting so many people writing to me in response to the show is exactly what you said. Everyone's journey is different, and there is no one-size-fits-all way to do it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you'll feel much better when you do it on your own terms versus someone else trying to do it for you.
Yeah, I can't imagine having that done.
Oh, yeah. I think that happened more years ago. I think the younger generation accepts people as they are more. When I was younger, I was horrified when the people that I respected at work would just make fun of gay people and stuff. And I was like, I can't believe this is happening. But it was still in the 90s and things like that happen. But it's more accepted nowadays, but there's still a lot of people that are fearful and afraid of losing their jobs for one reason or another, being harassed by other people.
So what about when you started Gay Life After 40, the website? Did it take you, like you got the idea and you just did it? You didn't have fears that you had to overcome at that point?
Yeah, I had fears when I wrote that article about my courage is my only fear. I felt like I had to do it. And if anybody knows me, I usually make things happen quick. When I say something, I'm going to do it. I usually do it. I usually don't waver on that. I built the site myself. Now, I probably couldn't do it, but I did
I'm
it
with
myself.
you. I built my first site, but that's a long thing in the past.
Yeah, and then I updated it. It was not that hard. It was discouraging at first because when I created the site, I told some older gay men that have been really very popular in gay communities what I was doing. Do you think it's a good idea? And they really frowned upon it because it's not going to work. No one's going to want to be on it. No one's going to want to participate, and it's not the case. I mean, nowadays especially, I get tons of people that want to advertise, and I have tons of people that want to. I have a guy right now that's going to be writing articles on physical fitness, and he's in his 40s. And he came up to me, and he has a wealth of information, and he's just doing it. So I know they were wrong, and it's coming to a point now where we're just keep on growing, and people really want some different messaging, and they'll learn a lot from our forums, but also just going on our sites as well as on the Facebook groups.
When is the mastermind?
It's on the 25th and 26th of September, and it's in Chicago at the Westin O'Hare. It's going to be a small group of folks. We'll have some social distancing in place. Hopefully things will get better. We moved it from July to September, but we'll be digitally recording it if we can have it, because let's say something, God forbid, happens, we will do Zoom meetings and record them all and do it that way as well. So there'll be some way of getting a hold of people and to really learn more about the different books and the speakers and how they can overcome obstacles over 40.
Well, Bill, I really appreciate, again, you being on the show, and maybe we'll get to see each other. I won't say face-to-face because we did that today with Zoom, but in real time, real life face-to-face someday.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. I would love that. I meet people all the time. I mean, I'm so glad we connected, and it's just a small world of, really it is when you really think about it, especially now in the digital age, to meet folks and to learn more about each other.
I want to thank William Smith for coming on Grain Rainbows. I'll put a link to Gay Life After 40 and to his Gay Life After 40 Live Summit in the show notes. William shared a lot of useful stuff, but the thing that he said that really stuck with me has to do with forgiveness. I was startled when he described that person who said, "I never forgive." I'm almost embarrassed to admit that I had never considered the fact that some people live with this attitude. As he noted, it is a self-destructive way to live. It also greatly contrasts with most of the guests who have appeared on this show. Forgiveness has been a major theme. Without forgiveness, we can't heal the rifts in our deepest relationships. This has nothing to do with what other beliefs we may or may not share. I'd love to hear what you think. You can email me at grayingrainbows@gmail.com or send voice feedback via speakpipe.com/Doc Artemis, or post to the Grain Rainbows fan page on Facebook or the new page on MeWe. Don't forget, I'm always looking for people who are willing to share their stories. Before I close, I need to make a few announcements. First, I want to thank those of you who support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/grayingrainbows. The main expense that you're helping offset is audio editing. Remember also that our private Facebook group has moved to MeWe for better privacy. So if you want to join, just send me an email at grayingrainbows@gmail.com and you'll get an invite directly from MeWe. The new thing this month is that I finally got the newsletter up and running. This means you can sign up to get show notes automatically every month. Just go to the show notes in your podcasting app to get the link, or go to grainrainbows.com. Finally, I want to tell you just a little bit about my book, Are You Sure? The Unconscious Origins of Certainty. It's about the implications of the surprising discovery that most of what our brain does is not only unconscious, but it's not even accessible to introspection. I'm encouraging people to buy it on Amazon on June 16th, 2020. However, anyone who buys it during June will be invited to a special free webinar. Also, if you want the paperback version, you may want to buy it from another vendor because Amazon is putting delays on book shipments right now during the COVID epidemic. So you're not sure whether this interests you. I'm planning to read an excerpt from the book on this month's episode of Brain Science, which you can find at brainsciencepodcast.com or in your favorite podcasting app. That episode is coming out on June 26th. Anyway, your support is greatly appreciated. I look forward to talking to you again next month. Grain Rainbows is copyright 2020 to Virginia Campbell, MD. You may copy it to share it with others, but for any other uses or derivatives, please contact me at grainrainbows@gmail.com.